Hello and welcome. I'm Traveler Matt, and today we have the first part in an ongoing series about our recent road trip throughout Scotland, into the Scottish Highlands, the Isle of Skye, and the way back. Today's video, we'll be hiking the Lost Valley of Glencoe. For those of you who aren't familiar with Glencoe, this is one of the most beautiful areas of Scotland. It is best known, perhaps, for its feature in the movie Skyfall. Glen, meaning valley, and Coe, the river that runs through Glencoe, is, as you can see, a beautiful valley with some majestic peaks on both sides. This hike will actually run perpendicular to the Coe Valley. There are smaller tributaries that feed into the Coe River, and this is one of them. You can find this on all trails, and this trail is about 3 miles out and back. It is pretty straight and well marked and well maintained, as you can see. It's rated on all trails as hard. I think that that's a fair classification, but it's on the easier side of hard, meaning that it's got a few scrambles that push it from moderate into hard. This section crossing the initial valley is quite flat, and there is sufficient parking if you get there early, but I can imagine in the more heavily trafficked months, such as later in April after Easter, that the parking can fill up quite quickly. We arrived around 9 o'clock in the morning, which I think made for a good time. In areas like this, where the follow-behind drone was not able to easily follow, I took a few photos. This section bridges the river and includes a fairly steep stairwell that you'll need to go down and back up. It also includes a scrambling section with a well-maintained metal cord rope. But as soon as you pass through those areas, you'll notice that the trail becomes quite well marked again, even if it is a little bit uphill. There are a few relatively steep sections. This is not one of those that are definitely traversable. A few of those sections require finding hand grips or finding foot grips, and it can be a little challenging at times to make sure that you're on the right path, but not too difficult. We did notice that there were a couple of small families who opted not to complete the hike after reaching these sections. However, I also saw a few small groups who were able to make it through those sections, even with medium-sized dogs that they were not able to lift. I would recommend that if you're going to take your dog, that you make sure that it is familiar with the scrambling parts of hikes, as it will not be easy to assist or carry them across those sections. The navigability of this trail is relatively straightforward. However, as you'll see in just a few moments, there are a few small sections that require a little bit of investigation to ensure that you're going the right way. You'll see Rebecca and I come up on one of these here in just a second. In addition to those few areas, there is at least one side path that I am aware of. It's well marked, well maintained, and just runs in a different direction. It doesn't make it to what I consider to be the best part of this hike. However, it can be a good option, particularly if you've hiked this area before, or if you'd like to hike it multiple times, or if you have a little extra time and just want to explore. As you can see, the path is relatively flat and straight on the left and escalates to the right. The Apple Watch app that I have paired with my downloaded map on all trails doesn't give me exactly the perfect direction, as it just provides a general arrow that spans both pathways. I spend a little bit of time trying to get my bearings. I believe it's the lower path of the two, but it's not so steep, and Rebecca's already started up the higher path, so she just decides to take the upper path and I'll take the lower, and we can investigate which path looks better. As you can see, all of this work leads to, just a few steps later, Rebecca seeing that this is the right way on the lower path. So I help her down and we carry on. Up ahead is another one of the sections which the Hover X1 drone is not well designed to follow. The follow behind drone is great at this type of footage, as it can very easily follow you through even minor elevation changes. However, it is not great at obstacle detection, and the trees ahead are a little bit more in the way than I would like. So I opted instead to skip those sections with the drone footage. You'll have to experience them on your own. There is a nice little side path up ahead that Rebecca decided to explore. It looked like, based on what we saw, another family had decided to have lunch there, and they left a small Tupperware container. We were not able to see who left it, and it may have even been from the day prior, so unfortunately, we decided not to take it with us in the hopes that if they were still out on the trail, they might come back for it. Fortunately, there are enough hikers that hopefully someone was able to clean it up if we didn't have the opportunity. Just ahead, I'll show you the little side path that we came down to a beautiful little waterfall. Here it is.
We just came down here. This is amazing. Truly.
Once we climbed back out, I decided not to use the drone as there were a few tight and wooded areas with a couple of hikers that I didn't want to bother with the drone. The hike at this point opens up into this beautiful hidden valley, which I considered to be the true Lost Valley portion of this hike. It's wide and flat, and it also dropped a few degrees in temperature. As you can see near the top, at this point, shortly before Easter, there was still snow to be seen at the top. The scale of this valley is a little bit difficult to ascertain from this part of the hike. But hopefully, when you see Rebecca appear again in just a moment, you'll get a sense for how big this valley really is. Take a look just to the right of my right arm as I round this corner. You'll see Rebecca pop out here in just a moment, and you can see how small she is, despite the fact that she doesn't look like she's that far away. She's just ahead on my left. You can see her on the trail there. There's actually another couple at this point in the hike that is at the base of the new elevation change. They had gone quite a bit ahead and decided to explore some of the upper parts of the trail. You can't even see them from here. That just tells you how huge this area really is. Ultimately, we opted not to follow the same path, as we did have places that we needed to be later in the day. I did want to try to make sure that you got a little bit more view of this hidden valley at the end of the trail. I'll also do a quick orbital shot so that you can get a 360 and see just how wide open this expanse is. I've seen in other videos, some hikers choose to camp here overnight. Although I recommend if you're going to do that, you make sure that you have midge-free or midge-resistant tents and spray to ensure that you're not overwhelmed by bugs, because it can get quite challenging in the later months when it's a bit warmer. I opted not to take much video on the way out, as you can see, the traffic had really picked up. However, I felt that it was important as we got to the Glencoe portion of this hike on the return journey that I provide you with a little bit of scale for where the parking lot is, how large it might be, how busy it can start to get a little bit later in the day. As this is a popular scenery spot and a well-trafficked road, it can get a little bit on the busier side. Tour buses will also stop here to take in the scenery. There weren't too many of them at this point, but we did notice a few come in and out a little bit later as we were departing. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this is just part 1 in our Scotland series. In the remainder of the series, we'll be talking about tips and tricks for booking your trip to Scotland, building your itinerary, things to avoid, other things to consider, and we'll be sharing some of our favorite spots. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed. If you have any questions about this hike or about our trip, feel free to leave them in the comments below. In the meantime, feel free to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to see more videos of our trip to Scotland and our upcoming trips later in the year. We have at least 1 or 2 more good ones that I think you'll enjoy. Once again, thanks for watching. Come back soon.